Good morning, everyone, to this meeting of the Skills and Employment Committee of East Midlands Combined County Authority. Have we any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Brendan Downey, Matthew Hall and Councillor Pearson.
Thank you. Do we have subs for those people? No? Right, okay. Just to introduce myself, for those who have not attended before, I'm Councillor Paul Hazelgrave from Derby City Council, and I'm the Chair of the Skills and Employment Committee on EMCCA. Another way of describing me is Portfolio Lead for Skills and Employment. I should have said that the meeting is being streamed live and your attendance is accepting you may appear on it. And can I ask those, I've already asked you to switch your phones to silent, haven't I? And to switch off your mic when you've finished speaking. Do any members have any declarations of interest? Councillor?
No, I hold an EMCCA contract for EMCCA company I work for.
So you hold a contract and that will be part of the body of the meeting? Yeah. Right. Okay, so we'll note that and then you'll take advice if necessary when we're discussing that. Yeah, thank you. Are all members, now we're going on to item 3, are all members happy to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as circulated? Those who was actually here? Yeah, I was, yeah, okay, right, so we've got enough to say yes, thank you. We're going on to item 4. Members of the public are eligible to attend the meetings of the Skills and Employment Committee and may submit questions. As it happens, no questions have been received. Have we any members of the public actually attending? No. Well, if anybody's watching online, I hope you find the proceedings interesting and worthwhile you're looking at. So we now go to item 5. And Andy Williams will introduce this, I think. Yeah, Andy.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Committee. The purpose of this report is to approve the appointment of Professor Dave Petley, who's the Vice-Chancellor and President of Nottingham Trent University, to sit as the non-voting HE rep on the Skills and Employment Committee. I think Professor Petley's... to provide a bit of background to this, because this has been going on quite a long period of time, at its meeting on the 4th of July last year, the committee was informed that the then existing HE rep was Professor Edward Peck, was stepping down from his position at the university, and as such the committee agreed that the NTU's Chief Operating Officer Steve Denton would act as the interim rep, with the university being invited to nominate a permanent successor in due course. In October last year we received an email from the NTU asking if Professor Petley could attend this committee, but today's meeting is the first opportunity for the committee to meet to formally approve the appointment of Professor Petley to this committee. So that in a nutshell is the report, Chair. So if I can hand back and ask the committee to consider the recommendation as set out in the report.
I would just go straight to the issue of is everyone happy to accept the recommendations and welcome Professor Petley to our proceedings and future meetings whenever he can attend?
Yes.
A show of hands, please. Thank you. That's unanimous. And welcome very much so. And I would have had a chat with you beforehand, but that always was forestalled by some traffic lights. We now move on then to item 6. The LSIP, or Local Skills Improvement Plan. And this will be introduced by Andy again.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this paper is to provide the committee with an update on the progress being made in developing the region's Local Skills Improvement Plan. It's to ask the committee to review a substantive draft of the LSIP that needs to be submitted to Skills England by the 31st of March, or a really close deadline. And we're also asking the committee to approve the delegation to the Director of Skills and Employment, Fliss Miller, in consultation with the Chair and the Federation of Small Businesses to make any necessary amendments and to approve the final draft, which has got to be submitted to Skills England by the 15th of May. So just to go through the paper, the report starts by recapping, giving a recap of a paper presented at the informal meeting on, I think it was the 9th of January, to the committee. That paper set out the changes in the revised statutory guidance and on developing LSIPs and the work undertaken by EMCCA in identifying the priority sectors. I think before I move on, I just want to update committee on an important issue related to the statutory guidance and also EMCCA's formal role in the LSIP. Committee might remember there's been a number of papers to the committee that EMCCA would potentially become a joint owner of the LSIP. But to do that, we needed legislative changes to go through the English Devolution Bill. These changes have not taken place. So as of today, we're not a joint owner of the LSIP, but we'll still be required to submit a statement to confirm the content of the document when we submit the draft on or before the 15th of May. So we can't, at this moment in time, I can't give any time frame when that legislation will change. But in the meantime, we will obviously continue to work in strong partnership with the Federation of Small Businesses to develop the programme, develop the plan and implement the plan once it's been approved. I think that was just an important point to bring to the attention of the committee. So moving on to the main body of the report. So since January, since we received that paper, there's been a considerable amount of work undertaken from the FSB to engage with EMCCA's employers in the priority sectors that we identify to understand their current and future skills needs. This has been carried out in several ways. There's been a range of sector-specific focus groups, employer interviews, and over 570 responses were submitted to an online survey. Now, in comparison to the last LSIP, they only received 38 responses, so there's been a considerable more employer engagement around. So, what are employers telling us? They're telling us they need to grow talent pipelines. They want to expand provision, including apprenticeships and short intensive courses. They want to develop clear progression routes into employment and also improve careers, information advice and guidance and employer engagement. So that was undertaken in January and February. Since that time, the FSB have now moved on to drafting the LSIP. And section 2.5 of the report sets out a timeline set by Skills England for the production, approval and publication of the LSIP. So that table clearly shows that we've got a really short time frame to submit a substantive draft, but it's important for the committee to note that that's not the full document. It's only parts 1, parts 2 and Annex C, and that's just going to help Skills England to establish whether the work that we're doing is on track and in line with the statutory guidance. We're expecting some feedback from Skills England on or around 17th of April, and then we've got to complete the final draft and submit it on the 15th of May, with some period of times in between the publication and approval to maybe make some other small amendments. So the next steps in completing the LSIP is for the FSB to submit a draft, which I think is Monday's the 31st, I think, and that contains, as I've said, part 1, Part 2 and Annex C, which are set out in the appendix. But to provide some context to the committee, Part 1, that section is to set out the local skills needs and priorities. The draft outlines the priority sectors and evidence-based use and the key findings from the employer engagement activities. And combining these, the current draft identifies 6 key priorities for which the LSIP will focus on. These are around addressing occupational shortages in the priority sectors, build provider capacity, upskill the existing workforce, deepen employer engagement, and hardwire into EMCCA's investment projects and funding streams, and also transform careers information advice and guidance. Part 2 of the draft, that section is required to set out the changes and actions to address each of the 6 priorities. I won't read those verbatim because I'm sure you'll see that there's a considerable number, but I'm sure you've seen them. But these have been developed in consultation with key stakeholders such as RFE providers, independent training providers, our universities, Department for Work and Pensions, and the Local Skills Improvement Plan Steering Group. And they're still subject to change and final agreement. It's just that we've got to submit these as part of the draft. I think an important thing to note here is that unlike the first LSIP, which had funding attached to its implementation via the Local Skills Improvement Fund, this LSIP that we're currently developing doesn't come with no new funding. So when we're looking at the actions and activities, we need to be mindful that when we're developing and refining these actions, we need to balance our long-term ambition around actually deliverability, what we can deliver from the LSIP. So it's quite a balancing act because there's no additional funding what comes with that. So Annex C, this section just explains the approach used to develop the LSIP and how it aligns with statutory guidance. It's quite a section about what the work that the FSB is undertaking in delivering the plan. So to just reassure committee, there's still time to refine parts 1, parts 2 and Annex C, and also we'll be working to complete the other sections of the plan ready for the final submission on the 15th of May. But as this committee is not going to meet until the 3rd of July, obviously you'll not be able to formally consider its submission before that deadline. So to ensure that EMCCA's oversight and in line with the function of the committee, which is to approve the LSIP, we're seeking delegation of authority to the Director of Skills and Employment, again in conjunction with Councillor Osgrave as Chair, and the FSB to make any necessary amendments and approve the draft. Now, in exercising that delegation, we will seek ongoing views of the committee, we'll seek ongoing views of the constituent councils via our technical officer group, and the LSIP steering group will engage with other wider partners. So that is my presentation of the paper. So if I can pass back to Chair and ask the committee to consider the recommendations and any questions on the draft. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. I think those of us who have been long-standing members will be really pleased to see that the priorities that have been established and are being worked on are the kind of things we've been discussing as areas anyway, of varying importance, but all clearly part of an integral system to actually improve local skills and get more people into employment. It's really pleasing to see that we're on the same line and we're all working towards the same objectives, and we're not quibbling about, oh no, this is more important, etc. The whole thing is a package which we feel collectively, all partners feel that will be productive in terms of raising the skill level and competence of residents of EMCCA, such that they will be more employable or will get promotion. So with that in mind, and the fact that I know you're going to come in, Councillor Woodings, with that in mind, discussion of what we have in front of us is important, because we need to put political input into this, or give political and seek political assurance if necessary. So with that, I'll ask Councillor Woodings to ask some questions, or a question.
Is this working? Might just need to ask Julie. Do you mind just turning your mic?
Oh, is that working now? That's it. Thank you so much. So I'm really pleased to see the plan today, and it's great that we had so many submissions into the collation of the document, and also, you know, well done for the really short time scale that you've got to actually put this together. Really interesting feedback as well, and I was pleased to see that the government has sort of responded to the quest for more apprenticeships by the New Skills England offers that came out in January, and the support for SMEs that are part of those shorter, more flexible, in addition to full-time apprenticeships offer that's coming out. I think what we would like from a Nottingham City Council perspective to understand the feedback from Nottingham businesses and those who submitted into the actual consultation, so that we understand what the feedback was from Nottingham, just to make check and balance, to make sure that we are sort of steering things in the right direction as well. So that, first of all, that would be really helpful. Second of all, it's really interesting. Obviously, I'm pleased that clean energy is going to be one of the target areas. And I really hope that as part of this skills improvement plan, we look to address the difficulty that colleges have in getting tutors or small businesses and businesses to actually release their people to teach the next generation of workers those skills, because I know there's a skills shortage in actual teachers to go out and teach green skills for colleges and further education establishments as well. Yes, we very much welcome the work that you've done and very happy to endorse the report. Thank you.
Andy?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We will. I will speak to Jen, the FSB, who collated the information, to see whether we can break that down at not only your local authority level, but also maybe at other constituent council levels as well. So we can definitely look at doing that. In terms of clean energy and the teacher question you put forward, we'll definitely look at that. I am going to present a paper around, there's something around that in the construction skills package shortly, but I think understanding that, how we can maybe take that forward. Like I mentioned, there's no new funding coming with this, so anything that we want to do differently has either got to be funded or other things have got to stop to free up the funding. So yeah, it's a complex picture.
Thanks, Andy. And I'm assuming that there's a tax officer group attached to this as well. Is there a TOG to get some information? So, I mean, if there is a TOG for this, there could be the people who receive information that's localised for their area.
Yes, Chair. So, as I mentioned, we will be taking the draft and iterations, the draft of the technical officer group, so we can get that feedback through.
So basically talk to your officer who's on the TOG, who should be able to give you some specific information about what's being found out about your area, and hopefully it's not at variance with what you know anyway. Yeah, but it's nice reassurance for you and for Derby or any other council. Yeah. Councillor Walker-Gurley.
I'm not sure. Oh, I'm flashing green. There you go. I'm not sure if I've missed it, but some of the biggest barriers for rural communities are simply transport. And I just wondered, are we happy that the LSIP is reflecting this challenge specifically?
Well, before officers come in, I'm really acutely aware of this in terms of how you'll need to switch your mic off. I'm really acutely aware of the fact that there are issues for rural communities with transport and connectivity to the internet, for example. And clearly we're having a group forming now where chairs of each of the lead areas or boards are talking to each other. And it's always been an issue, particularly for example, 16 to 18-year-olds who need to get to a college. Is there really good transport for them to get to college on time every morning in every rural area? Yeah, so I mean, we're working on that, and it's certainly an issue that is obviously totally working hand in hand with what we want to achieve. So we need to make sure that transport are aware that what we're trying to do needs to be supported by the whole issue of transport. Now, officers may want to come in as well and add to that. I'll leave that. Yeah, Andy.
Just to say that under priority 2, we have got a action around addressing transport barriers. So it is in there. I think that we need to speak to our transport colleagues back at EMCCA, who's just done the Mayor's big transport plan, to understand what they're doing, to link it all together. But it's definitely a priority action in there at the moment.
Another question?
Follow up on that?
Yes. Or yeah, fine.
Again, if there's any way, it might be useful for elected members to feed back, because I think we could probably play a role in assisting in that. So I don't know if you want to maybe send something out to us. We could do a little bit of work for you on that, maybe.
Yeah, and you must have you would have an officer there, would you, on the TOG?
Sure.
Yeah. So working with your TOG and making sure you're coming in from this side.
Okay.
Your TOG's coming in when they're talking to fellow officers, and we get the full picture.
Lovely.
Yeah, and nothing's missed out. Yeah. All right. And Cecile, Councillor Wright, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I'd like to ask, in relation to another generic issue, there's nothing specific here about how issues of social deprivation across the region is going to be tackled. I know there are themes, however, the region, we have pockets of deprivation, So in addition to transport problems, what are we doing in terms of ensuring that in accessing employment clearly and having skills clearly are important. However, they're compounded by deprivation of socioeconomic factors. In addition to that, in the actual paper, page 16, you give impact in terms of financial implications and legal implications. I thought we'd agreed that we would also look at socio-economic implications as one of the areas.
Andy?
Thank you.
Do you want to, I think in terms of that other section within the paper, I don't know if governance want to come in that, but
I'm not aware, but we can. I'm not aware currently on that, Councillor Wright, but we can definitely take that back and advise further at a future meeting.
That's fine. But I thought that was, we're talking about a year or so ago. I mean, I've been on this committee for 2 years, but I thought, at least 2 years, that that was one of the areas or one of the themes that would be considered for any area. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, I'm aware that the Mayor has introduced several programmes to address the issue of pockets, particularly significant pockets of deprivation, and that whatever's going on there does need to tie in with what we're doing here to make sure that support in terms of bringing people forward for developing skills and going through, you know, even before 16 in schools, making sure they're getting good quality careers education and guidance, great links with industry in the area, opportunities for really productive work experiences, etc. So that those young people do get a full understanding of what place they can take in the world when they become adults, and through education and through training. So that is one area I'm sure that, although it doesn't seem to be linked, is part of the mix, yeah, and we'll try and firm that up and make it more coherent, yeah. Fizz, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the LSIP is very much the employer voice that's coming in, and so the LSIP, or Local Skills Improvement Plan, is just one part of the jigsaw. There's a number of plans. So we've got the Get East Midlands Working Plan, but all of our commissioning is looking at social economic characteristics. So we look very much at a lot of data to help us target our commissioning. So this LSIP is very much the employer voice, which is just one voice and that feeds into the wider plan and the work that we do. So I want to assure you that whilst it's not overtly in here, the work that we do is very much focusing on those characteristics in how we commission our funding.
I think the issue is the embeddedness of that in all that we do. Thank you.
So I hope you have some assurance there that it's not kind of being ignored, and we'll make sure it's clearly more, there's more focus on that in terms of the whole thing, and across the boards as well. Thank you.
Julie wants to come in.
Sorry.
Julie's wanting to come in.
Julie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the steering group and also the further education representative for the committee. So I will try not to repeat what's been said in the steering group, but I think it's just important that the committee are aware of a few key points really in relation to the further education sector. We have extensive relationships with employers, as you would expect us to have. And there are 4 key main issues that employers report on a constant basis. So they are concerned and continue to be concerned about skills gaps and an ageing workforce. They are concerned that young people are not always work ready, that there's a lack of employability skills, particularly in relation to upskilling and support for upskilling existing staff. And that's in particular with regard to the advancements in technology. So the LSIP we need to ensure, as we further develop the plan, that we're making best use of all of our resources and potentially piloting some projects and testing theories that we can then expand upon probably after the first year of the delivery of the new LSIP. For example, in relation to skills gaps, providers are supplying literally thousands of young people every single year into the labour market. And yet, we don't see sufficient numbers of them entering into the industry for which they have trained. So we need to support and we need to encourage employers to give our young people a chance, and we need to build an infrastructure around those young people and those employers to ensure that that transition into work gives them the opportunity to get up to the levels of production that they need to be at for that particular employer and to build their confidence. I think we also need to carefully consider the support for schools, further support for schools and colleges in relation to supporting young people with employability skills. We do an awful lot in the FE sector, but obviously our funding is to deliver a main programme of education, and there is very often insufficient funding to be able to enhance that provision and support them with work readiness. Chesterfield College alone requires 120,000 hours next year just to support our young people with work experience. And we're finding that many employers are struggling to meet those demands. So we need to think really carefully, and the LSIP needs to reflect how we can encourage employers to engage, support and employ our young people, and also how we can fund and put a focus on that employability training starting in school, and also a focus on how we can support skills development in digital technologies, including AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. That's really helpful. And I don't think it's at all at variance with what we wanted to do pre-16 in terms of improving children's aspirations, but also giving them a sense of clear employment routes that they could follow. And also giving them that opportunity, wherever possible in their locality, to have a meaningful work experience. So all those things are really what we want to see as well. So we're not at variance whatsoever. I think we had someone with that. Yes, Councillor Justice.
Thank you. I was actually going to, that's actually explained quite a lot of what I was going to ask, because there's a lot of concerns from employers about work readiness and competence, and it's easy to say, well, we're just going to do work experience, but it's a much broader problem than that. And so it's interested to know exactly how the LSIP would respond to those wider concerns, not focusing just on school-aged children, but children as they pass, or young adults as they pass on from school and still aren't particularly work ready, and they may just fall through the gaps. And I was wanting to ask how the LSIP would respond to those cases.
Thank you, Councillor Justice. I think, so you're talking around the transition piece, so when people's left?
Yeah, when they've left school. Yeah, so when they've left school, and I'm thinking perhaps in the age group from 18 to 24, there's possibly still a lack of work readiness there, and these are probably the children who were at school in the later part of COVID and have perhaps been disadvantaged as they've moved through.
I think within the LSIP draft, we do recognise that challenge. I can't find the exact priority at the moment, but I think transitions is something what Julie mentioned. It is a key part of that, and there is things around what we can develop and deliver. So for working age young people, there's things like sector-based work academies and things like that, what we could maybe improve on, develop on. So I think there's quite a lot of things out there what we need to consider, review, and see how we can maybe make improvements within that. So I've probably not got a really good answer for you today, but it's definitely on our radar in terms of how we will get the LSIP to respond to that.
To add to that, we know that we've got about 1 million people around that age who are not in employment, education or training, and clearly there's a big challenge in terms of getting them into the whole thing of getting into work, having those basic skills that they need for that. And that's something that the government's acutely aware of. And in fact, we've had a lot of money coming our way to actually do what we can with that cohort of NEETs, as they're called, to actually get them around to be more employable and actually getting into work. And we've had some success in that. I'm pleased to say, and I hope that that will gain in terms of its momentum. Were there any other questions? Have I missed anyone's hand up? So, are we ready to look at the recommendations for item 6? Let's have a look at those. So, item 6, recommendation A is to note the progress made in developing the region's local skills improvement plan since the last committee update. B is, are we happy with that? Yes. B, to review and agree the submission of a substantive draft local skills improvement plan by the 31st of March, which is looming, the deadline set by Skills England. Yes, we're happy with that. Yes, good. And C, to delegate authority to the Director of Skills and Employment in consultation with the Chair of the Committee and the Federation of Small Businesses to make any necessary amendments and to approve the final draft of the Local Schools Improvement Plan for submission to Skills England for approval. Councillor Walker-Gurley.
Just a really quick one. Absolutely happy. Just to clarify for my own knowledge, this is to do with, so we're going to feed back to our own officers when this comes through before May, is that right?
Yeah, shall we get total clarity on that for Councillor Walker-Gurley?
Thank you.
So the plan will continue to develop. We have a number of technical officer groups, and so therefore that will be fed back through that, and also the steering group, so there will be clear process for sign-off. Thank you.
Yeah, good. So are we all happy with recommendation 3? Yeah, and I really appreciate all the questions and observations that we've had this morning on this. I'm sure officers are really pleased to get that, because it further will inform the final draft, clearly. Yeah? Good. Right, so with that then we can move to item 7. And on my script it says Andy again is leading us on this one.
Thank you, Chair. This is the last of me today, you'll be pleased to know. So the purpose of this paper is just to provide the committee with an update on the government's construction skills package, and to specifically outline those interventions which EMCCA will be responsible for delivering. So the paper starts by providing a bit of background to the construction skills package, which is centred on the government's growth mission to deliver 1.5 million homes this Parliament. And EMCCA as a region, we're supporting that house building ambition, and through our spatial development strategy, we'll help deliver the region over 10,000 homes per year for the next 10 years. And to accelerate our own region's house building ambitions, we've actually signed a strategic place partnership with Homes England. But I think there's a recognition both nationally and locally that to achieve these ambitions, we need to address the ongoing skills challenges in the construction sector. And to set that out is in a regional context, the Construction Industries Training Board Workforce Outlook tool, that's quite a mouthful, shows the entire East Midlands region, so not just EMCCA but Leicestershire and other places, will require over 3,000 extra construction workers each year between 2024 and 2029, and that's across all parts of the sector, so trades, managerial, professional and technical roles. And this is over and above retirement and natural attrition. These are new jobs, new people. So for us to meet our ambitions, we've got to really address the construction skills challenge. So what is the construction skills package? So government committed 625 million over 4 years to increase the construction workforce by 60,000 individuals. This has been built into a range of interventions that are collectively known as the construction skills package, which aims to address 3 key challenges. That's insufficient course supply, quality and capacity issues, and just to go back to a point that we've already raised, only 46% of FE construction qualifiers enter sustained employment nationally. So that's nearly half the people who get a qualification don't actually then progress into that sector. And it's also around strengthening links between learners and providers. Appendix 1 of this report sets out the full suite of interventions of the construction skills package, but I would want to concentrate the rest of the time on those interventions that EMCCA will have responsibility to deliver. But we will also ensure that those other interventions also, we will maximise the opportunities as well. So the interventions that are coming to EMCCA, so we've already received £1.3 million for delivery of skills boot camps and free courses for jobs in construction-related construction-related courses, and further years funding for this is going to be confirmed as part of the allocation of our adult skills funding. So there's some new specific interventions that have been delegated to EMCCA to deliver, and I'll go through these individually. So the first one is the Construction Technical Excellence College, or CTEC for short, and project-based capital programme. The purpose of that funding is to expand training places for construction courses in RFE College, and also create and improve facilities to deliver those courses in RFE colleges. So EMCCA's total allocation for this is expected to be in the region of around £6.9 million, and that's split between the CTEC allocation of just over 3.3 million and project-based capital over 3.5 million. The subtle difference between the two parts is that for project-based capital, the applicant has got to bring match funding or secure employer co-investment as part of that bid, where the CTEC one is pure capital. Just to bring to a point of clarity on the report, in paragraph 2.11 of the report, we originally expected that there being annual funding agreements up until 2029-2030 for this capital funding. And as such, we've already entered into an MOU and got an MOU with Department for Education and received this year's allocation of just over 2.8 million. But only last week we was informed by the Department for Education that instead of having annual allocations up to 2030, we're going to receive the remainder of our capital allocation, which is just over 4.1 million, early in the next financial year, but with the expectation that we will still have up to 2030 to allocate and spend that funding. So that is the CTEC capital programme. Another scheme that we're going to get devolved responsibility to deliver is the FE Teacher Industry Exchange Scheme. That intervention is intended to improve both the capacity and quality of construction teaching with RFE providers. A bit to the point you raised before, Councillor Woodings, but specifically for construction. And this will be achieved by facilitating construction industry to come into FE and support delivery of teaching, and also for existing FE lecturers in construction lectures to spend time into industry as part of their CPD. Now, subject to government funding, this scheme is expected to continue up to 2029, and it's going to be delivered across 3 phases. There's a test and learn phase, which we're currently in, a build-up delivery phase, and then a steady state phase. EMCCA's currently in the test phase. We've received an allocation of over 169,000 for that phase, and we're currently looking at the mobilisation and the upscaling of that programme to start in earnest in September. The other programme that we're going to get devolved responsibility to deliver is the industry placement scheme. But at the moment, government's not given us no information around that, so I'm unable at this time to give the committee any information around that one. So in terms of next steps, what are we currently doing as officers? So we're currently looking at the delivery options for each intervention, so we can get mobilisation up and running and get delivery sorted. Now, the options that we're currently looking at is whether we can do direct towards Derby College, who are a regional construction technical excellence college. Can we do any in-house delivery of EMCCA? Have we got the existing resources to do that? Or do we need to commission delivery partners to support our delivery? So we're currently working through that at the moment. So when we're doing that, we're assessing the mobilisation speed, risk, financial implications, and we're going to be working alongside our relevant colleagues in finance and legal to make sure that when we do start delivery, we meet the requirements of our grant agreements with government, and also our internal policies around procurement and such likes are followed. There's quite a lot of detailed financial implications in this report. Our finance colleague put quite a lot of information in there. There's no really key issues. I think it's just mainly around ensuring that we comply with our grant agreement. So I just wanted to touch base on that, because I think there's more finance than there is in my section. So I think that concludes my report on the construction skills package. So if I can pass back to Chair to seek committee's approval.
Any questions about this, Julie?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to raise, there is a concern within the further education sector that I think we need to be aware of in relation to the teachers industry exchange. We haven't got an awful lot of detail yet, but I think it's just a flag encouraging an employer to come into a learning organisation post 16 to deliver a guest speech or to talk about the industry is one thing, but to ask individuals from, for example, the construction industry in this case, to come into an organisation in a teaching capacity or to support with teaching, obviously has a lot of considerations around safeguarding, considerations about the management of behaviour, teaching strategies and methodologies that those individuals will not have, which will sit alongside a packed curriculum that we have to deliver in a limited amount of time with limited amounts of funds. So I think it's really important that we do engage with the further education sector. The implications for us on Ofsted inspections as well could be significant. So I think it's really important that we really understand exactly what the teacher industry exchange will look like and how we're going to manage that effectively. And I think we need to continue to lobby government and be very clear that we need to ensure that we have fair pay for the further education sector so that our teachers are paid at the same level as schools and universities, because ultimately if we were able to recruit and retain the level of teaching staff that's required to deliver the programmes, then we could probably have a very different approach in terms of industry supporting directly with teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. You do make some really good points there, and clearly there'd have to be some kind of quite extensive induction period before anybody from industry with no experience of FE went into a teaching environment and worked alongside, maybe not stand alone immediately taking classes, but working alongside colleagues in FE and getting that understanding of what the whole process is and how the curriculum is delivered. And the kind of teaching methods with SEND implications as well, so there's a variety of means of delivering something so that everyone in the class can actually absorb the stuff and become competent at what the skill is that's been tested. So there's lots of issues there. I understand. I was a teacher in a previous existence at secondary level, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and all sorts of concerns you'll have. And those things do need to be addressed, otherwise it will cause more problems than it intended to, than it was intended to solve. So, I mean, that's something really that we do need to be aware of, and hopefully the government is aware of, and we could maybe pass on those concerns to central government about what the implications could be in terms of the safety of doing that, in terms of safeguarding, etc. Yeah, so I think that's a really well made point. Now, there were a number of other hands up. I think I saw yours first, Councillor Woodings, then yours, Councillor Wright, and then yours, Councillor Justice.
Oh, thank you very much. And I absolutely echo the concerns from our representative from the FE sector about how in practice this would work. My understanding is that a huge barrier at the moment for things like that is if people are busy with work, they don't necessarily have the capacity to actually release somebody to go and train the next generation of workers. So I think the government's going to have to look at some sort of like incentive package for companies to enable them to do that. And then within that package, there would no doubt have to be certain things that would need to happen, DBS checks, some basic level of teaching skills. Of course, it happens on site because apprenticeships go out and work with companies direct. When you have an apprenticeship, you have them on site, and there must be minimum standards for that as well. But it's very different in a classroom setting. So I do agree that that's going to be an issue. I think our feedback from Nottingham is that obviously looking at the delivery models for this, I think it's a lot easier for colleges to release someone to go to the CTEC in Derby, but if you're looking at actually getting young people there. You come back to the things that Councillor Wright talked about transport, costs of transport, time of transport, availability of transport being a barrier to people actually getting there. So we would be very happy in Nottingham to host any satellite CTEC activity and help facilitate that, particularly anything to do with delivery of green construction skills, because we've got a huge demand in the city now for house building. We've got a lot of Homes England are snapping up land here, there and everywhere, and we know those skills will be needed. And I think the other thing to say is that, you know, we're certainly going to play our part as far as the council is concerned of making sure that construction contracts have that element of social value, that part of anything actually has a minimum number of local apprenticeships available as part of that. So I think each of the constituent councils where we are actually contracting schemes through, we need to play our part in opening up those opportunities for young people to come and get their skills on a live site, working with people who are very experienced in the industry as well. So we're very supportive of the approach, but interested in how the delivery models will be adapted to make sure that we don't have those barriers for people participating.
Thank you, Councillor Woodings. And just on the point of Derby College being the designated Construction Technical Excellent College, there's no expectation that, and it couldn't happen, that Derby College would be the only provider of this kind of education, construction education, for the whole of EMCCA. So what will happen is there will be, as you call them a satellite or whatever, lots of institutions will be used, but Derby College will be making sure that there's a kind of commonality of standard, yeah, so that we're getting because they know how to deliver to get really good results. Just ensuring, and I'm not saying other people don't in the field around EMCCA, but they'll be making sure that standards are kept at a really good level and if possible improved right across the region. But it won't be, not everybody who wants to do construction or become a bricklayer will need to travel down to Derby, because that just wouldn't be appropriate or practical, because we've talked about transport already as an issue. So just on that, I just wanted to reassure everyone here that, you know, Derby's not going to be taking everybody who wants to be a bricklayer anywhere in EMCCA to be trained in Derby. It will be done at the most appropriate place for that young person in the right setting. Andy, did you want to come in on other issues? Yeah.
It was that. Just to say that in terms of the development of the FE Teachers Exchange, the part of the mobilisation will be to speak to all our FE colleges around what does that actually look like, because there's those intricacies you've mentioned, Julie, but then at every college does things slightly different as well. So we know that a one-size-fits-all approach might not work, but as part of that mobilisation, we have got to do that overarching review with all our FE colleges who are in scope to make sure that the scheme works effectively and in the realms of what policies and procedures like each individual colleges have got. So we are going to start doing that relatively quickly.
And then I think Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair.
Please.
Yes, I just wanted to sort of contribute to what has been said about who should be and who can be in the classroom. And as an academic myself, I'd be concerned that we come away with the perception that anybody can enter the classroom irrespective of whether they have skills and the way with or teaching is a profession, a serious profession, and I think we should respect that. I also think that perhaps the teaching unions ought to be consulted, certainly within the FE and higher education sector. Perhaps we ought to also consult UCU, which is the relevant teaching union. I think they would be alarmed by what is being said at the moment in terms of the exchange, because the implications clearly for the professional integrity of academics and teachers. Thank you.
So I think we've noted that, and we'll make sure that's fed into whatever we, however, the way we go forward in terms of our consultation and cooperation with government in terms of how this policy pans out, so that it's actually something that's not something that is hair-raising for FE colleges when they see the final draft, but something they feel reassured is that the government is working with them and with the teaching professions to achieve something which I think is going to have tremendous value if it's properly managed and people are inducted well from industry into our FE colleges for short periods. Councillor Justice.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to say I think this is a great scheme, and it's absolutely great because it does offer opportunities both for young people and for people who want to retrain in these skills. So I'm absolutely in favour of it. And I wanted to echo what Councillor Woodings had already said. I was going to ask about continuing to support FE providers across the region, obviously. And also perhaps not just FE providers as such, because we have in Sutton Ashfield there's in the Inspire College, and they take on learners who have perhaps been out of education for some time, haven't got the confidence to go into an FE environment straight away, but still get some basic construction training, and then they will usually progress perhaps to the FE college after that. So there's a wider support that we'd be looking for smaller providers who can help that progression through to actually getting people fully skilled in construction and getting out there into the workforce. So that was just basically to give that background. Yes. And I also was quite interested, Andy said that only around half the people progress from the training progress to work in the sector, and I wondered whether there's been any indications or whether you saw the reasons behind that, and to try and improve on that statistic.
I'll let Andy come in a minute, but the first point you made I think is really, really important, that we would absolutely value that kind of involvement with people who want to retrain or get into work at maybe a low level of skills, you know, level 1 or level 2 or even before that. And we would very much be supportive of that, because you can't jump from one to the other, can you? And we need to have that, and we need to have people who can feel confident, and it may be about self-confidence that they lack as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we do need to build on that. So, you know, that's definitely going to be part of the mix. It might not have been discussed today, but all paths to that are important and must be supported at a local level. Yeah. Andy.
Yeah, I think that number around 4 to 6%, I think there's evidence to show it's around that transitions. People are leaving college with a level 2, level 3. I always pick joinery because I'm an ex-joiner, so I'm passionate about the construction sector. And the transition is they have to go to site and be able to operate at pace and quality as existing tradesmen. There's nothing that's bridging that transition piece. So I think with that part of the LSIP, I think me and Julie's had a considerable conversations around that transition piece. So it's around a young person having the ability to maybe work at a slower pace, be able to develop the skills that they've learned in college, but a lot of places in industry now doesn't allow that. It's because the economics behind it doesn't allow it. It's really, really brutal on construction sites. It's price fixed, it's time limited. So I think there's some probably work to do with employers as well. So we get, like I say, we're getting young people with the qualifications. I think there's a combination of multiple things there. But it's about giving young people the opportunity to develop and further their skills at a pace and quality that they can do.
Malcolm, you wanted to come in, and then I'll let you in as well.
I work quite closely with Andrew Cropley at West Knox College, being a Mansfield-based business. One of the things which has seen a huge success is the Gene Ash Centre, where you've managed to get local businesses like AF Switchgear to come in and have what they call like an academy, where, as an example, they will donate machinery, and then the youngsters at the college learn how to use the machinery, and they work very, very closely. So if there could be some sort of a pilot where businesses are incentivised in the construction centre to do a similar thing. So you actually get local companies, international companies to come in, and it's almost branded a certain area. It's branded for them, and people from that company will work within the college throughout the period of the academic year, and it's almost like training the youngsters, and it's almost like an apprenticeship outside but inside. And I also think there's a massive we do things the wrong way round, really. When a youngster finishes college, they're almost like left to their own devices. And so that's why I think you get so many people that don't get into to jobs. Maybe it's worth looking at a trial where government funded, you've almost got like a year or a 6 month period of where the government fund work experience within a division. So say, for example, West Knox College could potentially set up a West Knox College Build programme where they're actually employing these youngsters, part subsidised by a trial from the EMCCA. So rather than these youngsters leaving college, not getting jobs, then ended up being neat. Because I've seen it myself firsthand. I'm heavily involved in boxing coaching. And once youngsters get into out of work, they don't get into work. They get in with the wrong crowd and everything. So rather than like paying benefits to youngsters once they're out of work, perhaps looking at a different way around. And I don't know the full answer. I've got plenty of ideas, but maybe we should consider doing a trial with something like that.
Well, I think really thanks very much for what you've just been saying, because I think it's really worthwhile considering, and certainly I think officers, if they can have a look at that. Yeah, so Fliss.
So just to respond to that, as part of the construction skills package, there's the industry placement section. What I'm hoping is we have the flexibility that we can actually put that on to the end of a course rather than necessarily within it, to therefore become that bridge. We don't know the details of it yet, but I'm hoping that is the vehicle to do exactly what you've said there. On another point, just coming back on that as well, so part of the capital has to be match funded with industry. So again, on your point, what's happened in West Knox and many other colleges as well, if we could entice employers in to do that, then that is exactly what we're hoping as part of that matched capital. And just a point of clarification, sorry, before you come back in, just want to be really clear on what a CTEC is and what it isn't. So a CTEC was a competitive bid by a group of colleges into national government to draw down some additional funding. So Derby College were successful in that bid, along with, and they are the hub, and there are some spoke colleges as well across the whole of the East Midlands region, which is wider than EMCCA. So that is additional funding that's coming as part of that competitive bid. As with our adult skills funding, there is significant money that's going into construction skills training, which is wider than that CTEC programme. So everybody will benefit from it, but that is not the entirety of the construction skills funding across the region. I just thought that was important.
And just finally, just to mention, Malcolm, I was at that college that you mentioned because we had a business advisory committee meeting there, and I, you know, first impressions count for a lot, and I was massively impressed, and I didn't set a foot into the area where the young people were, clearly, because there'd be safeguarding issues if you had people wandering around. But yeah, I thought it looked really fantastic, and I'm sure he's really successful in what he's doing. Just before I go on to Councillor Walker, I'll let you come in again, Malcolm.
Yeah, I forgot to say that obviously I agree. Having it potentially as work experience at the end of a course would be great, because some youngsters would automatically, hopefully, get jobs. But I think that is potentially something that will stop or certainly bring them down in an area which is deprived and has significant sort of stresses. Yeah. Also, when the youngsters at college, it's not a work environment, even though they do their best to make it look like a work environment. So actually getting the extended period we're working with employees, they'll get to know how to behave and what's expected. And every company will work differently. So I think it's a no-brainer, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you for raising it. And Councillor Walker-Gurdy.
It was just a comment, really. I've been up to West Knox twice now, and it's, as you said, it's really impressive what they're doing there. It's really good, and we did get to go in with the young people as well while they were working, and
right, yeah.
see the work that they were doing and the level that they were working at was really good. One of the other things that I thought was really good that they did up there was preparing them not just for being employed, but actually the business world. So a lot of these people can go out and be self-employed as well. So I don't know if there's any sort of skills training that we can look at around that, preparing for the business world. A lot of people don't necessarily suit employment, but they could be great self-employed candidates as well.
Yeah. Well, FSB will be delighted with that. It's right up their street. We want entrepreneurs and risk takers, you know, that can make a business thrive and employ people in the locality and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, definitely all part of the mix, I hope.
Can I
Yeah.
just come back on that?
Yeah.
So just to respond to that, as part of the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer, so we're now going into our second year, but we saw that as a gap within provision. So within the second year, for our young people, there will be that support around entrepreneur. So I'm not going to say that right, but yeah, to take that forward.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me another opportunity. On point 2.20, regarding the commissioning, could be said about that, please? What does that entail? Exploring the option of commissioning delivery partners to deliver CSP on EMCCA's behalf.
Yeah,
Could
so
you
I
say a
suppose
little bit about? Sorry.
before officers come in, I suppose
Please
there's some
tell us.
work to be done on the model that we want to actually use, and there are 3 models there. So work will be done on exploring that and seeing if that would be a really good way of actually disseminating this, but also being value for money and being assured that where we're putting our money, we're backing winners in terms of good outcomes from providers. Yeah. So I mean, whatever model.
The issue here
Yeah.
is giving money to external consultants. Would that be value for money? That's the.
Are we looking at necessarily appointing consultants to do this work, or would EMCCA do it? I would have thought EMCCA would do it and has capacity to do it, so we wouldn't be talking about
I
that.
just wanted some clarification
so
here.
you're reassured
we know,
on that?
Yeah, because we know the mess we're in terms of social care with private providers holding the state to ransom. Thank you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you've made that point, that you've been reassured, Councillor. And the issue here is it's option A, B or C, and at the moment we've got an open mind and we're doing the exploratory work and doing the digging to might find out which would be the best model for EMCCA. So, I mean, on that basis, nothing has been decided by us doing anything, and it's really an update, isn't it, an informing item rather than an enabling item. So if we have a look at the, I think we're at the point where we can go to the recommendations. Yeah, thanks ever so much for those questions and observations. Recommendation A is to note the update on the government construction skills package as we know it at the moment. Yeah, and B, to note the interventions of the construction skills package that the government has asked EMCCA to deliver via grant funding and the work being undertaken to develop associated delivery plans. Are we happy with both of those recommendations at this stage? Yes? Yeah. Thank you very much. We now move to item 8 and Craig will be dealing with that. So a change of the duo has come to life because we've got the second half of it. Craig, off you go.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me, by the way? Okay, thank you. I would like to introduce a report to the committee to note the performance of the adult skills programmes, note the allocations approach for the next academic year, 26-27, and to also endorse the priority themes of adult skills policy development. It's quite a big report to go through, so I'll go through bite-sized elements. I'll take a pause through each item and take questions, if that's okay. So I'll go through the performance update. So I just want to put a virtual kind of calendar in your head now in terms of how allocations are given to our learning organisations. So over a 12-month academic period, our organisations are allocated on an equal amount of funding each month. there are several claim periods throughout the year, and there are several upload periods of data where we can monitor performance versus the forecasts. Our grant organisations, colleges, upload twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. Our independent learning organisations are paid on actual delivery and they upload every month. So there's always kind of a mismatch throughout the year of where we are for performance. So what I'm going to talk through now is we're currently, the data I'm presenting today is at month 6 in the calendar, which is halfway through the year, and performance in terms of funding for the Adult Skills Fund and free courses for jobs is looking really, really strong, where it's at 103% at month 6 for ASF and free courses at 123%. Now, this doesn't mean we are overspending, it means learning organisations are ahead of their monthly profile of spend. Skills Boot Camps, which is a delegated programme, we're currently on wave 6. We've piloted programmes for our grant organisations. There have been some really good successes, particularly on HGV training and other programmes. So we're just working through these pilots to see what's worked well and what hasn't worked well for future commissioning. But today we've supported over 800 EMCCA residents across the region. And then at the previous committee, I talked through the Power BI reports. They were very technical in their nature at the time. The feedback from the committee was to provide more kind of user-friendly reports. And I hope I've been successful in presenting these reports, where I've tried to reduce the acronyms and try and explain how funding's spent. But just to go over some of the key changes, we can see across all programmes, free courses for jobs, boot camps and adult skills, we are very strong in performance. The split of spend across the local authorities is quite good as well at this point in time at month 6, where you can see Nottinghamshire, where the lion's share, not the lion's share, but the bigger portion of the funding is allocated, but it's still, you know, a good percentage split there. And then we have participant performance. So this is individuals, EMCCA residents accessing courses. We've got 22,000 people on training courses at the moment. Actually, it's changed. We're now in month 7 of performance. But we've got a really good, strong completion rate at 80% at month 6. And 62% have gained a qualification out of all of the training provided. Some of the funding is spent on tailored learning, which is non-regulated training courses. We've also got some new maps, some heat maps of fund spent and participants who have access to training. Now, where you can see the reds, this is not a negative. This is where you can see delivery is strong at this point in time at month 6. So this means certain learning organisations have delivered in other areas earlier than they previously planned. So we are managing and monitoring these enrolments to ensure learners and residents are accessing across the whole region, but still looking very, very positive. And then when you look at the other maps, we've got the planned on the left-hand side, again on the right-hand side, where you can see where all the engagement of learners are happening across the region. And we've got some good enrolments across Nottingham, Derby, but we're not kind of behind profile in any of the regions, in any of the areas forecasted, which is really, really positive in the first year of devolution. We have learning demographics, so we can see now the type of individuals are enrolling on the course. So we've got gender split, so we've got 60% pretty much female on courses, a good split of male residents accessing training. I think that's some of the health and social care training that's being delivered, where it's predominantly female in those sectors. We're supporting people with learning difficulties and disabilities or a health problem. So the funding and the training is accessible to all people. And the age group, something to look at. We can see that predominantly we're looking at support, well, they are supporting 24 to 49 year olds. Still very, very strong. I think we need to do more work on the 19 to 23s in those areas and look at, you know, where are the gaps and where are the challenges for these young people. But at month 6, it's really, really strong. And then we have a breakdown of the ethnicity of learners engaged. And again, just to remind, we're at month 6. These figures will start to change throughout the year. And then, if you remember back, go back to 2 years when we had the strategic skills plan approved. On the last page, there's a series of outcomes where we've asked providers where they tendered to support these outcomes, and our key grant providers delivering to our priorities. And you can see, in terms of at month 6 for construction, really, really healthy in terms of engaging those learners for that sector. Digital technology, a bit lower than construction, but still in a good position at halfway through the programme. And engineering and manufacturing has been really positive as well there. So some really key sectors of the region. I'm looking forward to other data coming through for the employability and those level 1, low level training skills, which we'll have in the next few months. So you can see that bigger picture. But again, some good completion rates across all programmes. And then we've got some outcomes. So you can see learner outcomes for skills boot camps. So a lot of people are going into new jobs, promotion in work, or self-employed work there. And then tailored learning outcomes, which is monitored through the system the Department for Education provides. Some good outcomes there for tailored learning. For the Adult Skills Fund qualifications, the outcomes are not monitored through the DFE system. We're having to implement can't get my words right, a manual process to monitor those. So at the end of this academic year, we should start to see some outcomes versus what the process profiled. One report which I really, really like is the where we'll be supporting areas of deprivation, and we are focusing the provision in the right areas in those hard to reach communities. You know, we've got Nottingham City, the Derby City, and then North with Mansfield and Ashfield, Bassett Law and Earwash, to name a few. So the funding is focused in the right areas, I think. A bit more work to do, but I'll talk about the evaluation process later. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of the reports. I'm happy to take a pause and questions.
Let's see, I saw Councillor Mahmood, then Councillor Walker-Gurley. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Overall, the report shows encouraging progress. I'm keen to understand how confident we are in the underlying data and how we ensure that strong delivery translates into meaningful, sustained outcomes for residents. Also, can officers provide reassurance on how robust the current performance figures are, given the reliance on forecast data at this stage?
So, Craig.
Yeah. Thank you for your questions. In terms of the outcomes, so with the local authority tailored learning and some of the college provision, this is monitored through the individualised learner record that they use to submit these outcomes. So they are, that's real data, real live data, which we can monitor. That's coming through the system. The challenge is for the Adult Skills Fund, formula funded, so qualifications, where the destination system was taken away from the ILR, the individualised learner record. So what we're doing then is every training or learning organisation has submitted a delivery plan, and they've forecasted their outcomes within this delivery plan. All learning organisations have their own back office system, MI systems, some use Perlos, Matas, other types of systems. So that's where we can use the data from their systems, and on the monthly relationship management performance reviews, we can look at that data as and when it comes in. However, later in the report I want to talk about introducing an outcomes framework which will kind of, you know, round that off in the next 1 to 2 years. In terms, I can't remember your second question, sorry.
Yeah, it was about reassurance on how robust the current. It was about reassurance on how robust the current performance figures are with the given reliance on forecasted data at this stage.
Yeah, so every learning organisation has submitted a delivery plan where they've forecasted how many level 1, level 2 residents in local authority areas, subject sector area, so that's a forecast at the beginning of the year, and learning organisations submit their data through the ILR, and the ILR is actual data, so the figures that I've just been through are reliable data. Obviously, throughout the year, learners withdraw from programmes, so these figures will go up and down, but only small.
And so we've got an order now of Councillor Walker-Gurley, then Councillor Graves, then Councillor Justice, and then Councillor Wright. Yeah, so Councillor Walker-Gurley.
Thank you. Just a really quick comment to say thank you. I thought that was really well presented. Lots of information in one place. So very happy with that.
Yep. Councillor Justice? Oh, Councillor Graves, sorry, yeah.
It doesn't matter which the order it is.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just got a few points I wanted to make. I think the first thing is you talked about deprivation, which is quite an important area. But I just wanted to make the point that people in rural areas are also suffering from deprivation, and you know it's not just the inner city areas. And I just wanted to make that point. I understand that EMCCA is actually working with local authorities to deal with rural areas. So I just particularly wanted to make that point. The second point I wanted to make was the allocation of funding. Now I've noticed that Derbyshire, for instance, is getting 4.5 million. That's the same amount as it was last year, and I wonder whether that's going to have a negative impact on what we can provide and what we can achieve, because it's a standstill figure, and I don't know whether we can do anything about that or not. My last one was about economic inactivity, those economically inactive. I'd like to understand a little bit more about how we engage with that group of people, particularly with from the business side of things, because as a former businessman, I would have not preferred to employ somebody that I know was economically inactive on the basis that suggests that they don't want to work, and businesses don't want to take people on that don't want to work. So I'm pleased that there is work being done on it, but what I'd like to understand in the future is to understand how you've gone about it and how you've achieved the things you need to achieve, and also obviously look at the outcomes of what you have achieved, because they are going to be they're going to be the hardest group to engage with.
Thank you for your questions. So in terms of allocations, this is the next part of my paper, so
right.
I'll talk through
Okay.
the approach there, if that's okay. In terms of resident inactivity, so you've got different cohorts of inactives within the region. You've got young people, which are inactive, NEET. The Adult Skills Fund can support adults from the age of 19 upwards. You've got inactives at an older demographic, potentially at my age, or potentially retired, or have been made redundant and lost confidence in terms of being able to move into a new job. So all of our learning organisations are actively engaged, particularly with the community training provision, tailored learning delivered by local authorities. So they're engaging these hard to reach people hard to find people actually, finding them, to start those first steps with confidence building, so they can move eventually into a job. In terms of young people, there needs to be more work done there. I do agree with the Adult Skills Fund, but it's how we, engage them locally. But there are some inactives on the system being actively engaged, but there is more work to do.
Can I follow?
Please, yeah.
So I think it's a really good question. We've got over 100,000 economically inactive residents within the EMCCA region. And as we go on to the next paper, there is a section on how we will have specific programmes and targeting, actually trying to work alongside the ICB in partnership, recognising significant number of our economically inactive is due to long-term ill health, but also that programme will work with employers as well as individuals too, because I think a lot of our provision focuses on the resident, less so on the support for the employer or business receiving the person. So we will cover some in more detail around some specific support for employers in a later paper.
And so now, Councillor Justice.
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to echo what Councillor Walker-Gurley just said, and thank Craig very much for the amount of hard work that's gone into presenting that information. And I was on the call in January in the informal meeting where we struggled and grappled a little bit with the charts, and I recognise the enormous amount of work that's gone into that. So I think that's really good and it's very informative. I'm potentially going to ask for a little bit of more analysis of a slightly different kind, because I noted the comment on page 57 about the 2% top slice and that wasn't sufficient. So I was wondering what the top slice would be, and whether we could ask for details of staffing and structure, so that we can note how that top slice, how much it is and how it's being spent.
Yeah. So you want to come in there, Chris? Yeah.
Thank you. So in terms of the top slice, and the paper goes into some of the detail, previously we had ring fence pots of monies around free courses for jobs, skills boot camps and ASF. For skills boot camps, you could take up to 15% top slice. For adult skills funding, we opted at the beginning, to go for 2%, which is the absolute lowest rate that any strategic authority has taken. If we're going through, so taking away the ring fences and then bringing that into one pot of money, by having 8 months of delivery, seeing some of the complex regulatory challenges that we're having, the amount of money we're actually having to put into audit due to some of our learning organisations' ways of working, we're seeing significant additional expense than what we initially anticipated. So what we're trying to do, and we're doing detailed workings out, because we want to make sure we don't take money away from delivery, but that we actually make sure that we are effective servants of public funds and getting the most money. So we do not see any money being taken away from delivery, but trying to realign each of those top slices to therefore come with 1% that will work across all of there. So we're doing detailed work. We didn't want to come to you at this stage because it's not complete, but we will be outlining all of that in the paper coming to July committee. So I want to give some assurance that we do not anticipate taking money away from frontline delivery, but just balancing out as we go forward.
So the transparency you request will be provided in that update.
Can I thank you for that? I wasn't suggesting that there was no transparency there, but I was just interested in the comment there, and obviously realising that some extra factors are obviously coming into play all the time, and it would be useful to have that analysis, but it's coming in July, so that's good. Thank you.
And Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the data presented so far. The analysis is helpful, and it's pleasing to see that there have been some positive outcomes. Could you just assist with further analysis with respect to the performance skills bootcamp, page 54? is suggesting here that out of 800 residents that received this, only 186 were gained employment and promotion. What happened to the other 75%, which is 614 from my calculation? Could you just give more information there, please? Thank you. And also, I'm really pleased that you are looking at deprivation across the board and not just within our conurbations, inner city areas. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So in terms of the skills boot camps, the progression hasn't stopped at the moment, so people are still on training courses, and actually the training finishes on the 31st of March next week. Learning organisations have still got 6 months to get people into work, and I hope you see from the Wave 5 data before, actually this time last year the data was quite similar in terms of the progressions and outcomes, but we've got until September later this year for those to come in, so that's a journey, but it's looking really positive based on what's been submitted today.
And Julie.
Thank you. Craig, I'll come in, if that's okay, once you've gone through the allocations element, just on behalf of colleagues across the college sector. I think we do really welcome the reports and the sophistication of those reports in terms of some of the evidence base, but I think what's really important as we make that transition out of the shadow year into EMCCA having full responsibility for the delivery of the adult skills budget is very much around long-term impact and how the spend of the adult skills budget is having an impact on our local residents, on local people, and of course on our local economy. So for example, we measure the spend and we measure the outcomes in terms of qualifications. It's good to see boot camps, we're starting to see some of those broader impacts being measured, but I think it's really important. The colleges tend to deliver the vast majority of their provision on entitlement, on the priorities that we know has to be delivered before we can look to deliver anything else within the fund, and that's very much around first level 2, maths and English provision for adults without a maths and English qualification, and supporting those that are unemployed. I think it's important that we understand the impact of some of the other provision that we are delivering across the piece, particularly that may be delivered from the independent sector when we have a lot of short courses, online short courses being delivered. And is it actually having a sustained impact in terms of outcomes, impact and long-term economic benefits? So I think as we progress through, it would be helpful for us to understand not just the spend and the qualifications, but the impact on our local economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for your question. What I'd like to do is go through the outcomes framework throughout the paper and then the evaluation process, which will measure the impact of the Adult Skills Fund.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We'll just get to the next part of the paper. Okay. So allocations approach. To maintain stability within the system, the approved strategic skills plan has a 3-year cycle of maintaining those allocations, and this will enable our local authorities and local college provision to plan their curriculum over the next 3-year period. However, bit of exciting and good news, we've just received our funding letters from the DFE, and they've confirmed that the free courses for jobs and skills boot camps are now fully devolved, the same as ASF. So we don't have to follow the national funding rules and requirements. We can develop these programmes as we see fit based on the recommendations. So these funding letters have just come through, and we are now waiting for our MOU to come through, just to make sure legally we can make these in-year changes. What we'd like to do though is put some flexibility in terms of, rather than having those kind of funding lanes, we'd like to do a bit of manoeuvring and allow providers to move through the different funding lanes across free courses, ASF and boot camps. So it's a bit of a pilot of hiding the wires of the funding. So that's really exciting. So we don't have those restrictions at the moment. However, because we're only in March, we've allocated indicative allocations. We are meeting with every learning organisation to discuss performance, and where there is some underspend, we can make increases in year. We do have some underspend in the procurement routes, which I'll talk a bit more later in the paper, where we're going to move this funding into an innovation pot, where we can do a bit more kind of innovative funding, which we didn't have before. Okay, so as I've said, the procured allocations, performance is really, really strong on procured, but we are using that underspend and moving it into the innovation fund, but we can also support other programmes, and I'll talk about this later, such as voluntary sector and other areas and policy work we want to support. Okay, I'll take a pause. I'll take any questions on the allocations piece, and I'll move over to the next piece afterwards.
Did you had your hand up before, Councillor Justice, did you? No? Who was it that I was? Sorry, Councillor Woodings, and then I'll let you in, Julie. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that. I was sort of like coming in on the tail of the previous item as well, but it is really good news about the freeing up of the barriers between different funding streams, and like you say, we think that will be hugely advantageous. That's really, really good that the government is allowing providers to actually do that. I just wanted to say, as far as the paper overall is concerned, I mean, the interesting thing in Nottingham, and I don't know if it's replicated elsewhere, is that our NEETs level for 16 to 17-year-olds is relatively low. Our actual NEETs levels increase well above the figures that you've put in here from 18 to 24-year-olds. And then, look, you're right to say, I think one of my colleagues said, once somebody leaves education or training and they don't get a job, they don't get a job going forward as well. So it is really good to see the take-up of the adult skills opportunities in Nottingham. And when I saw it being in red at the top, red normally means bad in local government terms, but to see that they're overperforming as far as that's concerned is really, really good to see. So I also echo the point about the data, because we asked for numbers as well as percentages. We asked for breakdowns by localities, and you provided that in a really clear format. So that's massively helpful to us. But as I say, we are quite interested in that transition offer, moving, as I say, from the 18 to 24, 19 to 24 NEETs and onwards from there. So we'd be very interested in looking at that youth transition offer and seeing how that might develop as well. I would go back to the point I raised last time, is that I think it's a shame that this doesn't acknowledge volunteering opportunities as a success. I did mention that the last time round, but for people who are economically inactive, as I say, it's a really great gateway into it. And when there's no funding for it at the minute, hoping that's something that's developed. And then we very much welcome the demand-led commissioning. Certainly in Nottingham, we have vacancies in our health and social care recruitment. So actually a focus on that would be very helpful from us as well. But no, thank you so much for the improved performance report, and yeah, we'd very much like to see that continue.
Anything to say there, Craig? And, to add to that? No?
No.
No, good.
No, okay, thank you for your
Yeah.
positive feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that issue about people going into the voluntary sector and, you know, helping there and developing their skills and their employability skills and getting a CV from that or a recommendation from somebody they work with to a potential employer is really helpful and should be recognised. And, you know, I mean, we massively, I'm sure we all in our authorities massively appreciate the help we get and the support we get from our voluntary sector organisations to actually deliver what we're hoping to deliver as a council, because we can't do it on our own, frankly. And it's the same in the jobs market. There are people who benefit immensely by doing that time, taking that time to go and work on a regular basis in the voluntary sector, develop those skills, develop that profile of being there on time, working in a team, delivering, supporting the aims of the organisation they're working for or are there as a volunteer for, and therefore, you know, making themselves eminently employable. So I think it was Julie next. Am I right? Yeah.
Craig, my ask may have turned into a question. So, having spoken with all of the principals across the EMCCA region, I think generally the allocations to colleges are fairly static. So really welcome the fact that you'll be having individual conversations with fellow college principals and their teams, because it is felt that we can deliver more, and we can deliver more against some of those essential entitlement criteria around particularly support for first level 2 maths and English and programmes for the unemployed. The ask across the sector was also that we had one pot of funding that we could utilise without there being a restriction in relation to free courses for jobs. So has the announcement from central government in terms of full devolution, will that allow us, and will you be open to us having one pot of funding across the sector? Because colleagues across all of our provision, all of our areas within EMCCA region in terms of college adult skills, because of the change in methodology and funding for first level 3 moved into free courses for jobs and some level 2 provision in construction, for Chesterfield College, with the allocation that we currently have, which is only £70,000 for free courses for jobs, we are already having to look at turning individuals away for next year's delivery because we haven't got sufficient funding in that free courses for jobs allocation. And I think it's just an observation that whilst we recognise and understand the need for other types of provision, over 2/3 of that free courses for jobs allocation as it sits at the moment has been allocated within the private sector. And again, it's just that focus on developing and delivering qualifications that will make a difference to our local communities and to our local economies. So I guess my question is now, will we have the flexibility to have one pot of Adult Skills Fund, and obviously with your support, utilise that appropriately to ensure that we can meet the needs of our local communities, particularly focusing on those priority areas within the adult skills budget?
Thank you, Julie. That's a really good question. So just to explain, the devolved or unring-fenced approach from the DFE or DWP now, it's not a true single settlement at the moment where GM and West Midlands have received. So we still have our funding lanes, wires internally that we need to kind of manage, and we have a assurance report we submit to the DFE on an annual basis. So we have to articulate how much we spent on the ASF, free courses and boot camps. But that doesn't stop us from delivering training, you know, without any restrictions from ASF, as so long as it's a free courses for jobs eligible qualification, but we could introduce flexibilities and qualifications and coding that will be a free courses for jobs course. So if that helps, I'm just thinking from a technical point of view, we still have to monitor and report it, but from a delivery point of view, you can deliver across the funding streams so long as it's coded correctly. That makes sense.
So, just taking Chesterfield's overall allocation, are we saying then that we can deliver on an unlimited amount, so in terms of funding, on free courses for jobs to allow us to enrol those students that we wouldn't have been able to enrol for next year because we haven't got sufficient allocation? We've already delivered this year, and it's the same across the whole patch, £120,000 worth of delivery that has been unfunded because we hadn't got enough funding for free courses for jobs. So are we saying that we can have one pot of money and utilise that money across boot camps, free courses for jobs and core ASF?
Simple answer, yes. So as an example, if you've got lots of construction training, as an example, subject sector area, where you've over-delivered on free courses for jobs because it's got a free courses for job AIM code, we can allow that to be transferred over to use the ASF allocation. So there's a bit of kind of technical jiggery-pokery in the terms of the funding systems, but for a college to deliver and organisations, we can flex that from a grant position. We're just working through options appraisals at the moment internally so that we can look at the underspend on procured route as well, going back to your original question, and how we can allocate that to performing organisations based on the mix and balance organisations are delivering and the outcomes linking into the strategic skills plan. So that was a long kind of response, but yeah, the answer is yes, there's just some work to do to make it work, I think, in further discussions.
That will be most welcome. Thank you, Craig.
Please.
I was just going to follow on from that. So one of the things is these are indicative allocations, so we will be writing out to you. Julie, we hear from you and your fellow principals too. This is about working in partnership. We know that we need more level 3 qualifications across EMCCA region, and so therefore we will work with you to make sure that we've got the appropriate funding in the right places. We obviously have delivery plans, and that will be how we take this forward. But yeah, we will write out to you, but to give you that assurance that we recognise and we hear what you're saying.
Thank you. Councillor Dawson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question from me. Obviously, you mentioned in the report about the new setup with Tameside College for those learners within the High Peak area. Obviously, we heard earlier on about the difficulty with transport needs and getting to certain places. Is the intention moving forward, if that is a success with Tameside, to perhaps look at expanding that across other neighbouring areas where it is going to be difficult for some learners to get to? I mean, if you think of parts of South Derbyshire, for example, easier to get to Stoke rather than perhaps into Derby. So is that in the intention longer term? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your question. Currently we have Burton and South Derbyshire College down in that part of the region which supports the South Derbyshire area. We've got RNN College, which North Notts College, which is a predominantly a Rotherham college, and then Lincoln College, who have a campus in Newark, which cover those kind of cross-border areas, and West Notts College cover the other side as well. In terms of the High Peak, Tameside College is actually closer for some of the communities, Hadfield and Padfield, which is just next to Glossop on that road to the Manchester Airport. So yeah, transport has been a difficulty. So we're supporting regulated qualifications, employability programs, and these the outcomes are focused on moving people into work and progression. And actually, the majority of the funding is focused on construction. There's a big need there. So what we'll do, as we've always done, is evaluate all provision and respond accordingly, I think, rather than reacting. There's a lot of research and data analysis that needs to be done on the high peaks. It is a hard area to get access to training, so we're doing more work with Buxton and Leek College, University of Derby, which is part of that college group, and Derby College Group as well, to see how we can expand that rural area support.
Thank you.
Right, hey, please.
Yeah, I think just coming back, Councillor Graves, to your question around allocations. So you'll know from some of the detail that Craig's provided that we're still in our first year of delivery. And so therefore one of the promises as agreed at committee and also at full board was to ensure stability within the system. We're still in our first year of delivery. We won't have the outcome of delivery until R14, so at the tail end of this year. But I think I want to give some assurance that we want to make sure that we get the most money, and really over the next 6, 9, 12 months we'll be looking at the marginal pound, as in where do we need to focus our funding to make sure that we have most impact. We have a finite pot. Everybody could always do more with more funding. Yeah. And so we really want to go through the evaluation, through evidence, through demand-led, using the information from the LSIP, from a range of different providers and data sources to make sure that we are doing the best that we can with our funding. That will be sensitive. Whenever you look at changes, there are winners and there are losers. So it's not something that we want to do quickly. We want to do it in partnership to make sure that we gain consensus as we take it through and everyone can gain, be bought into the methodology, build the methodology together. So we know that there are areas, we'll obviously want more money, but I think what we need to do is wait for the first year of delivery, but not wait, we'll start that work now. But not rush into making any knee-jerk decisions until we have that evidence base behind us and everybody is taken forward as we look at a new approach. Thank you.
Right, so I think we've got to the point where we had a lot of discussion there, some seeking reassurance, seeking clarification, etc., all really helpful. And I think we're at the point, I believe, that we can go to looking at the recommendations for this item. And those are as follows. For item A, note the performance of adult skills programmes. B, note the allocations approach for 26 to 27 academic year of the Adult Skills Fund. And C, endorse priority themes for adult skills policy development. Are we all happy with those three recommendations? I suggest a fourth recommendation, just thanking all involved in the outcomes for our residents, the positive outcomes for our residents through the delivery of all our programmes. And that means officers, because they've helped to set it up and support, etc., but also FE colleges, the whole gamut of people who have been in classrooms or on workplaces, at work sites, actually helping our residents to gain the skills necessary to further their career aspirations and gain employment in many cases. So would we be happy if somebody's made a note of that as a recommendation? Yes? Yes. Good, thank you. I think we can move on now to item 9. And item 9 is again...
I think.
Bliss. Yeah, it's Bliss this time. Yeah. So local growth fund skills development theme.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper is predominantly to note, but also seeking your endorsement about the approach to the skills development theme of the local growth fund. So we were one of 11 strategic authorities who have received some additional funding which is aligned with EMCCA's local growth plan. There are 3 areas. We have infrastructure investment, business support and skills development. This paper is only considering that final theme around skills development, and a wider paper has been considered at the investment committee, and final decision will go to full board in either June or July of this year. So one of the things to note around this funding is that it is revenue and capital, and in the final year it is predominantly capital. So therefore, in taking any programme forward, we need to be aware that the revenue funding does disappear in the final allocations. So we've worked extensively with the TOG and we spent a whole day together looking at evidence, but then also starting to build out some themes. So there's 3 different areas of which we are proposing to take forward. One is around economic inactivity, and we've already alluded to the growing concern that we have with our residents who are not even seeking employment. That is over 100,000 of our residents. The majority of those, not majority, but a significant proportion is due to long-term ill health. We do have the Connect to Work programme, but that only seeks to address 12,000 residents, and so therefore there is still a significant gap. So we are proposing to develop a programme in total partnership, true co-design, in looking at how we can support not only individuals but also to our businesses as well, recognising that many of these individuals have significant challenges, and therefore, especially given the economic climate at the moment, we can't just keep expecting our businesses to support our individuals, and we need to look at how we can provide some support to them too. So that's the first area. The second area is looking at co-investment support in training. Again, we've seen a huge decline in employers investing in their own staff, and that's a concern for us. And whilst there are a number of public funds available, that's not in every area. And so this is how can we, in true public-private partnership, look at how we can develop a programme that will support our businesses most in need, aligned to the growth agenda, and specifically looking at our SME market. So again, this is a straw man. We're working on developing this, so would seek your endorsement on the approach, but also if there's anything you would like us to consider. And then finally, it's the youth ambition. The Mayor has talked about her youth ambition. We hear practically daily the challenge that we have with our young people. 1 in 8 of our young people are NEET or youth unemployment, depending if you're looking at 16, 17 or 16 to 24. Whilst there is funding and not enough funding and loads more work that we need to do, and Sir Alan Milburn will be reporting on his commission in September, but this part is looking at how we can work with constituent authorities and wider partners on the preventative side. So not the intervention, but looking at prevention. How can we reach our young people earlier to stop those coming into economic inactivity or NEET? So this paper outlines those 3 areas and asks for your endorsement with the approach, and would also seek feedback on any of those particular areas. Thank you.
So, Councillor Woodings.
Yes, thank you so much. Really pleased to see the 3 themes that you have obviously collaborated with the officers group to put forward for this additional local growth fund. And it's good to see the level of revenue associated with it as well. Very much welcome the theme of focusing on people who are economically inactive. I think I've discussed that in previous contributions as well. We do have a high level of people who are economically inactive in Nottingham. As a way of addressing that, I think we had a meeting outside of the EMCCA meetings to discuss our very localised community-based employment support that's available, that is really good at getting out into those communities, like you say, hard to find, Councillor Hazelgrove. Very hard to find, but they can find them as well. So we very much welcome the sort of long, the focus in that area. In relation to the youth ambition, I think it's a really, and I think I've actually said before, we really need a centralised portal where people can get work experience for their young people. And what I would really like us to think about is the inclusive employment approach to that. Because the emails that I get and the messages that I see on social media are, my child has SEND. We just cannot get a work experience placement for them anywhere. So I think there is, for certain groups of individuals, there's difficulty getting into work experience. But there are a whole load of young people who have many additional barriers to actually getting those opportunities as well. Now, really interesting, I went along to an inclusive apprenticeship course that our council officers had set up last week, where they actually brought in employers to talk to them about the practicalities of employing someone who has SEND, and we also had some really brilliant individuals there who have actually managed to gain employment, but because certain employers made allowances, made adjustments, and really helped those people. They're now valuable participants to those businesses. So I would really love to see us look specifically at that issue as well. And then obviously it talks about a regional model, but we do have digital exclusion as well. So I'd like us to think about the practicalities of people who are digitally excluded as far as how they would access and what mechanisms they could use to access that regional portal. Thank you.
Really very helpful. I absolutely agree on that, the whole idea of being inclusive. And in fact, some programmes we've been running have addressed that issue and looked at particularly groups of people like young people who are being involved with the Youth Justice Service, people with SEND, people with autism, people with Down syndrome, all helping those particular groups and others that I've probably not mentioned, and targeting them to work and make sure that they are given help to develop for themselves a career path with support and developing the skills they need to go further and actually make their way in life and become economically active. So, I mean, that's very much central to what we're doing and what the government thinks as well. So I would be really surprised if that wasn't integral as part of the system that we're organising. And in fact, if you were to look at Year 9 pupils and say across a year group who are more likely to become NEETs, you would be looking at that kind of range of cohorts, but others who aren't SEND but really are feckless because maybe parents don't have any value on education and there's no message to their child at home. You know, you've got to do your best in school and really engage and make sure you get your best results so you can move on. There might not be that conversation for some parents. And we need to make sure that the school or EMCCA, through careers education and guidance, etc., and also support mechanisms, give that support and that encouragement to young people to actually, do their best, become the best person they can be in terms of their employment capacities. Malcolm, you were going to say something then, Councillor Walker-Gurley.
Just on work experience, from my own experience, business owner, I know a lot of businesses and businesses want to help give youngsters work experience, but it's challenging out there. I mean, most businesses in the area employ less than 10 people. Significant majority of businesses now employ even less, so it's difficult for them to take on youngsters. Again, I'm also a governor at Joseph Whittaker School, and I've got 2 lads that go there. And I've managed to get one of my lads work experience. From what I can see, quality work experience, a lot of it is dependent on the parent knowing somebody. I don't know if there's an opportunity. I think the FE sector is the best placed to take youngsters and give them work experience if there was funding stream there for them. It's impossible for schools to get quality work experience for every single child. I think if there was some sort of a fund there to help pay for work experience within an FE college, be it within the sort of environment that we spoke earlier about, the Gene Hass Centre, where companies are already there, or within the colleges itself, I think it should be looked at, because otherwise we're going to be letting youngsters down with quality work experience.
Yeah, on that, Malcolm, there's always going to be young people, even when a school offers work experience, that those young people don't engage with that process because they're not mature enough, but they need that support later on and would benefit from it at that point. So we always have to have that in mind. You know, people at 16-year-olds, there's a massive range in development and maturity for a 16-year-old, boy or girl, and we have to recognise that in the system. Because we're dealing with people, yeah? So I think you make some good points there, but I do think we do need to move down this path of the preventive path, and really encouraging and trying to make sure that we get the best connection between local businesses and schools to actually deliver work experience, and making sure that schools don't all plan the same week in a quite a large city where they're trying to flood the market in terms of provision. You know, they stage it and have a plan amongst themselves so that actually it's phased and companies can respond to the demand that suddenly comes up 2 weeks after Easter or 3 weeks before Easter or something like that. So I think you made some good points, and we do need to always have that fallback situation. And it could be for some people that FE is the best place to provide that work experience because they have the maturity and the understanding, and the risk is very low that it won't be productive for them to do it. Were there any other questions, or would you like to come in? Yeah.
Just to follow up on that point, so there is now a duty that every secondary school child has at least 2 weeks' worth of work experience. So therefore, we have to take that forward, this is a response to that new requirement that we need to take forward.
Yeah, that's why I raised my point, because that's not going to happen. It's impossible. You're not going to do it without the help of someone like the FE sector, but the FE sector would need funding to do it. Like I said before, businesses, like I only employ 3 people. I've got a multi-million-pound business. The advent of innovation and using AI and using external people, employers don't tend to employ significant levels of people, certainly small SMEs. And again, the majority are under 10 people. So we've got to have a fallback, and even if that's there just to help the ones that don't get experience, because otherwise it's not going to be achieved.
Yeah. Right. But you've made your point, and we've taken it on board, and we understand the economic situation does make it difficult, but we are in the situation that the government wants every young person before they leave, before they finish year 11, to have work experience as part of their education, and we have to respond to that. You know, the more young people that get involved that wouldn't have done otherwise, the better, I think, and the less likely that they'll become needs in some cases. Right, so were there any, I may have missed some hands up, and I'm not quite sure of the order. Councillor Walker-Gurley, and then Julie.
Yes, for all the constituent councils, but obviously in our case NCC in particular, is there an opportunity for us to help shape the programme design before the final commissioning decisions are made?
Yes.
Yeah, this is I would say total true design. So as officers we spent a whole day together, and that will continue throughout the process. I am totally committed to working in partnership, so therefore it works, and try and set a regional framework but allow for local commissioning and delivery to make sure that it works within communities. Yeah.
Julie?
Thank you. I think it's a really interesting concept in terms of the further education sector supporting with work experience opportunities for pre-16s. So we currently have a construction skills hub that was funded through Staveley Town board deal over at Maston Moor in Chesterfield, and that's supported by the Devonshire Group, but it's also supported by 2 national house building organisations where they've given us a plot of land, and we have students in the Staveley area, which is an area of high level of deprivation, who are training on a real live building site, and they are working alongside Harron Homes at the moment. They'll be working alongside the Vistry Group shortly, which will be more of a modular build construction for houses, and it's just won a national award. And if we had got sufficient funding to be able to engage some of our school pupils, pre-16s, within that provision, it would provide them with a really, really meaningful insight into the construction industry in a safe environment, with members of staff who are DBS checked, all the safeguarding, all the pastoral care already in place. So I think it's a really interesting concept that we really need to build on. I think the second part around the growth fund, Fliss, this is really welcomed, I think, in terms of the three strands that we're looking at. And I guess a lot of the conversations we've had today have been around youth unemployment, NEETs, transitioning our young people from colleges and other providers into work, and the challenges that we're having in terms of employers taking on young people and giving them the opportunity, the development and support that they need to become an effective member of staff within that organisation. So I guess the question is, would we be able to utilise some of the revenue funding around that youth ambition and that preventative measures that we want to take to try and avoid more young people becoming NEET, whilst we're also tackling the ones that already are? Is there an opportunity there? We've talked about having a recruitment agency, haven't we, across EMCCA that supports that transition, around having a workplace mentor. That's all sitting within the LSIP, who links with a college mentor, so that we utilise some of the funding to facilitate those young people going into work, which is part of that preventative measure at 18 to stop them from becoming NEET when they leave their college or they leave their education.
I can't commit to that today. There is a specific ask of looking at going younger and going into schools. I don't disagree, it's not a good idea, but whether or not this money can support that, I can't commit to that. Happy to explore. In July, we are building out the youth ambition. I think we will see there will definitely be a lot more policy focus on this space, and so I think we need to explore that, whether or not it's this funding that would take that forward. I can't commit to that, but there's certainly other avenues that I think we can explore in how we could take that forward.
Any other questions or no? Okay, if we look at the recommendations, for item 9, we've got A, note the LGF allocation and the requirements for the investment plan. B is to endorse the proposed priority areas for the skills development theme, and C is to note the proposed timetable for programme development and commissioning. Are we all happy with those 3 recommendations? Show of hands, please. Yeah, lovely, thank you. And we now go to item 10, and that is going to be Fliss again.
So I think this paper gives perhaps the most comprehensive forward look that we've had since EMCCA was formed in terms of the work programme for this committee. The plan, and some of this goes towards it, some of it doesn't, is you will be very aware that in this area of policy there are multiple programmes, and this is how can we start pulling things together to therefore deliver on one theme or ambition. So one of the things that you'll see coming forward is the youth ambition. Today we've talked about a number of different funding streams, ASF, inactivity, LGF, and how do we start bringing together a coherent package of support with clear policy intent to deliver and to address some of our most challenging areas within the region. So this outlines some of those specific parts of which we want specific feedback on, but also looking at the same time at some bigger policy and strategic directions for us within the combined authority. So it's really seeking your comments on the future 9 months and see if there's any particular areas that aren't currently in the plan. There will of course be changes as we go through this, but I thought it'd be helpful to have a clearer line of sight of the work within the Directorate. Thank you.
So I think this really is a kind of reflection of how mature we're becoming as a board in terms of the work we've covered, but also the kind of scope of having to have kind of oversight of what's been going on and getting updates and maybe refining things that we've done in the past. So it's becoming more extensive, but I think it is a coherent plan at the moment which addresses what we think will be our future needs and our known future needs, but it takes account of things that we may feel need to be revisited in terms of how effective they seem to be in terms of delivery and outcomes. Has anybody any thoughts on things that they would like to get an update on that's not, not in a really short period of time, but they would like to get an update on, and it's not really been covered in the draft reports or the possibility of reports in the future? Yeah. Going forward to right through to March next year. So we can build on that. We don't need to make decisions now. But if there's anything you'd like, for example, in the October meeting, about 6 months from now, and it's not covered, any updates or anything? If you've got any thoughts, you don't have to say them now. You can let us know, let Fliss know. Yeah, Councillor Woodins?
Well, just to say that, I mean, there's a lot in for the next meeting, isn't there? And it feels to me as though there's a lot of funding coming out for things. EMCCA are standing up a huge amount of provision as well. And I think it would be good to have, like you say, a performance update at the end of the, at the end of the, I don't know what the appropriate time is, Craig, because of the way that it's reported in a retrospective way, but that sort of like overall performance update on all of the different funding streams. That would be a good thing. But I think it's difficult to sort of like say a year in advance, this is what we want to see, because I just feel that it's a very sort of flexible situation at the moment with funding coming out for lots of different things. So I'm not going to particularly add to the next meeting's agenda because I think we might be here till tea time. I just think perhaps we should be looking to see. I like to speak to providers and then sort of say, how's it working for you? What are the barriers? And then think about if we need to feed that back in and say, can we have a report on this? So sometimes I think it's good to just get the sort of like citizens' ground level feedback as well and highlight any areas of interest.
So we've made a note of that, and we can have a look at that. And it's a working document, obviously, and we may have more to say at the next meeting, because obviously this will be a regular feature of our, as it is for all committees. So I would have thought that we're involved in our own authority.
Can I just say, so in October we do have a performance report coming in that will be everything apart from ASF due to the timings. But as part of that, we'll bring case studies into that as well, because I think that's helpful to bring it to life rather than just numbers.
Councillor Walker-Gurley.
Do we have an AOB agenda item, or is this kind of...
I don't think we do have capacity for AOB.
Could I just suggest, I mean, again, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I do feel like local government in general, not criticising the EMCCA, some of the papers that we get and information that we get is a little bit convoluted, and I feel like we could do with maybe 1 or 2 more meetings. I don't know if everyone else would agree with that, probably not, but I'm just throwing it out there. I think it would be beneficial. Obviously, this work that we're doing is really important. And I think we could benefit from maybe 1 or 2 extra meetings, personally.
Anybody else got a view on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Fliss and Craig about our very localised provision in Nottingham, so that we kind of need to have an understanding what's there, because we've got 3 lots of Pride in Place money coming into Nottingham, and so we kind of need something more geographically specific rather than on a whole EMCCA basis. So I'm wondering if that might meet the need for a bit more sort of very local understanding. I was only concerned that we need to have a really good understanding of what EMCCA are doing and funding and planning, and they need to have a really a good understanding of where these other streams of funding might be working as well, because we don't want to sort of like have overlaps or so we kind of like want to work together in partnership to make sure there's really good coverage of what's happening where, both geographically, demographically, on an inclusive basis as well. So I'm wondering if that, I know that you're trying to organise that at the moment, whether that might be a vehicle where we could sort of like do it outside of like a formal setting.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Malcolm?
The Business Advisory Board, we do something similar where you have like an informal meeting on Teams. I mean, obviously I don't mind travelling. It took me an hour and a half to come from Mansfield today with the roadworks. That's why I was a little bit late. Apologies. So I think that's a potential thing we could do.
Yeah, I mean, we have had informal meetings, quite a few actually, and have been really productive and, and helped to distill down items that had required decisions and really firm them up to make them really have a lot of potential for a really good impact on the lives of our residents right across the footprint, which is what we want to do, isn't it? So on that basis then, just to formally go through the recommendations for item about the item 10, to approve the draft work programme attached to Appendix A and receive regular updates on progress. We're all happy with that, yeah? And comments have been made and we'll be looking at that and looking at the possibility of whether we need more meetings, but that's a really complicated thing because I would imagine the diary for next year, the next civic year, it starts in June for EMCCA, has already begun. And certainly could cause problems for us all attending if we had extra meetings. So on that basis then, thanks ever so much for taking the time to come along and make the journey. I hope you found it worthwhile. I certainly have really valued the input from people and from virtually everybody in the room to make sure that we're going along the right track in terms of what we want to deliver, and that we have continued the momentum that I love to see in terms of this committee and its capacity to make real changes, positive changes to the lives of our residents, young and old. Thanks ever so much for coming along, and safe journey back.